Okay, so have you ever like thought about what would happen if like a pandemic hit? And I don't mean zombies or anything, but just like everything just stopped.
Uh,
Like picture this, yeah. Empty streets, grocery stores completely wiped out, like something out of a movie, but it's real.
yeah, no, it's eerie to think about, right?
Totally. And that's exactly the kind of world Emily St. John Mandel, she throws us right into it in her book Station 11. It really gets you thinking, you know?
Oh, absolutely. And the way she writes, well, she uses these two timelines, right? Before the pandemic hits with like everyday life and all its craziness, and then boom, decades later where people are just trying to pick up the pieces.
Yeah, and we kind of become these, like, I don't know, invisible witnesses or something, watching it all unfold. And that's what I think is so cool about doing this, like, a deep dive into this book. Especially, well, you're into this whole thing about how societies rebuild after something huge happens, the power of art, all the things we kind of take for granted, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it makes you wonder, like, what actually matters in the end when everything's on the line? Station 11 just throws those questions right at you. It's like, bam. We've got Kirsten, for example. She's young, traveling with this group of, get this, Shakespearean actors, calling themselves the Traveling Symphony.
The Traveling Symphony.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, that image right there, this group of actors going around performing Shakespeare in a world that's basically gone to pieces. It's kind of brilliant, don't you think? But why Shakespeare? Why do you think that resonates with people, even in this crazy post-apocalyptic world?
It's like, yeah, okay, survival, that's one thing, right?
Yeah.
Basic. But what makes life actually worth living? And Mandel, she seems to be saying it's art, music, stories, all that stuff we kind of, I don't know, sometimes overlook. Those things become even more important, almost like essential when everything else is gone.
Right. It's like that one line in the book, survival is insufficient. Chills, right? And it gets me thinking even now, like we turn to books, movies, all that for comfort, escape, right? It's like a shared experience. Imagine if that's all we had left. Would art be like, I don't know, like a lifeline or something?
Totally, yeah. That's exactly what we see with the Traveling Symphony, isn't it? I mean, they bring this, like a glimmer of beauty, of humanity to these places that are just so isolated. It's more than just entertainment, though. It's like this reminder of who they were, who they could still be.
So how do we get to this point? How does Mandel show us, like, the world falling apart? Because she doesn't hold back, that's for sure. But it's not some big Hollywood action scene.
No explosions or anything like that, right?
Exactly. It's the quiet moments, the empty streets. Remember those container ships? Just stuck there off the coast.
Yeah, those are haunting, aren't they? Like the symbol of how connected everything is and then how easily it can just break down. It's like Mandel is, I don't know, holding up this mirror to us,
Yeah.
Like, look, this is how fragile everything really is. Pay attention.
It's a wake-up call, for sure. And then we meet Jeevan. This journalist just kind of finds himself, I don't know, in the thick of it, almost by accident. He's at a play, sees this famous actor, just dies on stage, heart attack, not the pandemic or anything. And suddenly his life becomes this kind of microcosm of all the craziness that's happening everywhere. It's wild.
That's such a smart way to tell the story, though, isn't it? Because Jeevan, he's like us, right? Completely caught off guard. And then he gets this call from his friend, Wahai. She's a doctor, and she's describing what's happening at the hospital, but she's weirdly calm,
Oh, I remember that part. And Jeevan's like trying to brush it off, like it's no big deal. But you can tell deep down he knows something's wrong. And I think that's what makes the whole collapse so scary in Station 11. It's that feeling, that dread, like things are unraveling. It feels, I don't know, too real.
Absolutely. It's that feeling of this could actually happen that makes it so powerful. Like it could happen to us right now. And it's not just him, right? I mean, Jeevan's not alone in this whole feeling like something's off. Remember Miranda?
Oh, Miranda, right. The graphic novel Station 11, that was her, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's the one. And that comic, it becomes like this whole other thing later on.
It's like, whoa, this is deep, But Miranda, she was married to Arthur, right? His first wife. The artist. I mean, trying to find her place in this world where it's all about fame. And she's like, what about art, Her story, I don't know, it really hit me, that feeling of being surrounded by all these people, but still feeling totally alone. It's like she was already living in her own personal apocalypse, even before the real one hit.
It's true. And, what I find interesting about Miranda is that she seemed to get it, even back then. Like, she understood how fragile everything was, you know what I mean? Remember that scene at Arthur's anniversary party? She's like, I'm out of here, this is weird, like marooned on a strange planet, her words. And then she ends up talking to Jeevan, the paparazzo of all people. Can you believe that?
Oh, yeah, that part. And they're like on the same wavelength or something, talking about what actually matters, what lasts. I think she said something about Truth and beauty, something like that.
Truth and beauty, yeah.
What?
In a world that's all about, like, appearances,
Yeah.
She wants something real, authentic. And what's crazy is how that whole idea, truth and beauty, it becomes even more important after everything goes down.
Because when you strip everything else away, that's what you're left with, right?
Right.
Truth, beauty, that connection between people.
Exactly. And it's not just, I don't know, like these big ideas either. Think about all those things, objects from the before world that Mandel keeps bringing up, a credit card, a snow globe, even that old copy of Station 11 that Kirsten finds.
It's like they become these, I don't know, sacred relics or something, like little pieces of history reminding you of what was lost. And for Kirsten, that Station 11 comic, it's almost like, I don't know, magical.
It's her connection to the past.
Yeah.
Her childhood,
Yeah.
before the pandemic. And in a way, it connects her to Miranda, too, even though they never actually met, which is kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. It's like this thread woven through time, connecting them through creativity, through art, through imagination.
Speaking of connections, we've got to talk about Arthur Leander. I mean, he's gone, like, right at the beginning, but he's everywhere in this story. It's like he's haunting the whole thing.
He really does, doesn't he? Haunting is a good word for it. And that's what's so interesting about him. We see him through all these different lenses, his wives, his friends, even that paparazzo he spills his guts to, It's like we're putting together a puzzle, but we're never quite sure if we have all the pieces.
And the picture we get is this guy, Arthur. I mean, yeah, he's flawed, no doubt, but he's also got this capacity for love, for longing, for something more. He wanted to break free, escape his small-town roots, make something of himself. But ambition like that, it comes with a price, doesn't it?
Doesn't it always? It makes you think, what are we willing to give up, to sacrifice for our dreams? And what happens when those dreams turn out to be, I don't know, maybe not so dreamy after all?
It's that classic question, right? What do we value? And what are we willing to lose? And in the world of Station 11, after everything falls apart, those questions become even more intense, more urgent.
Oh, absolutely. The stakes are higher than ever. Look at the Traveling Symphony. They're out there facing danger every single day, risking their lives, basically, just to keep going. Why? Because they believe in something. They believe that art can heal, that it can connect people, even in the middle of all this chaos.
Which brings us right back to that idea of art as a lifeline, doesn't it? It's more than just entertainment, It's about finding meaning in the wreckage, finding beauty where you least expect it. It's about reminding ourselves that even when things are dark, really dark, there's still something worth holding on to. There's still hope. But it's not always, sunshine and roses, is it? Even with art as a lifeline. I mean, Station 11, it doesn't sugarcoat anything, does it? Things can still go wrong, even when people are trying to rebuild, trying to find their way back.
It's true. Human nature, right. We're complex creatures, even when facing, well, the end of the world as we know it. And then there's the prophet.
The prophet, right?
Yeah.
Talk about a curveball.
He comes out of nowhere with this whole message of hope and order, like a beacon in the darkness. But then things take a turn. It gets, well, kind of scary.
Yeah, it's like he's taken all that trauma, all that loss, and turned it into something, I don't know, twisted, this need for control. It reminds me of Arthur. In a way, both of them, searching for something, trying to fill this void, but going about it in completely different ways,
Whoa, that's, you know what, that's a really interesting connection. Because you're right, they are both haunted by the past, in a way, both trying to reshape the world according to their own vision. But Arthur, he was all about fame, ambition. The prophet, he's all about power, control. Two sides of the same coin, maybe.
It's chilling, though, how easily people are drawn to his message. Like they're so desperate for something to hold on to, some kind of certainty, that they'll follow anyone who promises it. That scene, remember when the symphony, they run into the prophet's followers? It's like they've lost themselves, Like they're empty shells.
It's a powerful image. And it makes you think, right, about the dangers of dogma, how seductive it can be, especially in times of crisis. When we're afraid, when we're looking for answers, it's easy to fall into that trap, to give up our own agency for the promise of security, even if that security is an illusion.
Exactly. And that's why I think those moments of kindness, those small acts of grace, they stand out even more. Like when Kirsten and August, they meet that guy, Finn, living in that abandoned gas station. He's cautious, of course, wouldn't you be? But he still offers them shelter, a little bit of human connection.
It's like this little flicker of hope, right? A reminder that even in the darkest of times, even when it seems like humanity has gone off the rails, there's still good out there. And it doesn't have to be this big, dramatic thing. Sometimes it's just about showing up for each other, even in the smallest of ways. Like August, remember, Taking the time to care for those bodies, even though they were strangers. Covering their faces, saying a prayer. That's humanity right there. Holding on to our empathy, our compassion, even when it feels like everything else is falling apart.
And in the end, I think that's what Station 11 is really about, isn't it? It's about acknowledging the fragility of everything we take for granted, the power of art, of stories, of human connection to help us through dark times, and those tiny acts of grace that remind us who we are, what really matters, even when the world as we know it is gone.
Yet you said it. And it's not by chance that Kirsten and the symphony, they end up at Severn City, right? That almost mythical place. It represents hope, a new beginning, a chance to build something better.
And even in Severn City, this place that seems, I don't know, almost idyllic, the past is always there, isn't it? Lingering, like a ghost.
It's like you can't escape history, can you? No matter how hard you try. It's always there, shaping the present, reminding us where we've been, what we've overcome, and what we might face again.
Clark, for example, remember him? He was with Tyler, Arthur's son, when everything went down. Now he's the curator of a museum in Severn City, preserving artifacts from the old world.
Trying to hold on to the past, in a way, right? To make sure we don't forget. And it's there, in the museum, that he finds that article about Arthur's death, the one that mentions Kirsten, and that mysterious man in the audience.
Talk about a full circle moment. It's like the past is reaching out, touching the present, reminding us that everything is connected even when we least expect it. And those connections, those threads of memory and experience, they weave a tapestry that stretches across time.
But even with those connections, there are still so many unanswered questions, aren't
Yes,
there?
sir.
What happened to Tyler? Did Severn City survive? Mandel leaves us hanging, doesn't she? But I kind of like that. It's like she's inviting us to imagine our own endings, our own hopes for the future.
That's the beauty of a good story, right? It stays with you. It makes you think. And sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones that leave us with more questions than answers.
And on that note, as you dive into Station 11, we want to hear from you. What resonates with you? What would you take with you into an uncertain future? What stories, what connections, what pieces of yourself would you fight to keep alive? Join the conversation, leave a comment below, and let's keep exploring these ideas together. Because in a world that sometimes feels like it's on the brink, it's stories like Station 11 that remind us of the power of hope, resilience, and the enduring spirit of humanity. And that's something worth holding on to, no matter what the future holds.